Alright guys, so we're just going to run through the very basics of putting together a camera projection. Nothing fancy, it's just going to be the basics, nothing pretty, it's going to be pretty ugly probably, but we're going to rush through this just so that you've got at least you've got the technique down. So the first thing we need to do is we need to bring in an image into Maya, and actually even before that we need to figure out what numbers to punch into Maya's camera. So I'm just going to drop down here, and I'm using an image that was taken with a Canon 5D Mark II. So you need to figure out what the sensor size is and what the focal length of the lens is. Um, so one way of figuring this out is if you're in Windows, I'm not sure what you do on a Mac, but probably something reasonably similar, is you go to the properties and details, and it will tell you the dimensions of the image, which is useful because that's what we need to tell Maya to render out at. And this actually tells me what the model of the camera is. And from that we can jump onto the internet and figure out what the sensor size is and what the focal length. Well, actually no, the focal length is actually shown here, but it'll tell us what the sensor size is. So if I go here, and okay, let's just open up here and we can have a look in Wikipedia. There we go. Why it does that? Okay, Wikipedia, and if I put Canon 5D, that's a Mark II. If Wikipedia hasn't got it, I'm sure the manufacturer's website probably has these details somewhere. But anyway, here we go. So the sensor size is 36 by 24 millimeters. Unfortunately, Maya is in inches, so we need to convert that. So if we drop into this, and here we go, calculator. Normally when you open this up, it will be a basic calculator. So if we hit view and drop down to unit conversion, it will give us this, and then we can choose what we want to convert from and to. So we're converting length from 36 millimeters to inches. That will give us 1.417. So this is the equivalent of a 35 millimeter film camera, and it's actually what Maya defaults at. So we don't actually have to do this conversion with any photos taken from this camera or cameras with similar sensor sizes. But if you did have a different sensor size, this is what you do, and these are the numbers that you would get. So jumping back to Maya, okay, what we're going to do is we're going to create a new camera. Okay, and if you remember the focal length, so this is what you'd get from your lens, and it was taken at 24, so pretty wide. And then the camera aperture, this is the width and this is the height. These are the two numbers that you will take on the calculator. So the first one, 36, gives us 1.417, as you can see that's actually already in there, and the other one will give you 0.9448 or something, which rounds up to 9.45. So we've got that in there. So that's great. And then the other thing we need to do is just give it a name. So we'll call it projection cam. Not a big issue if we're only doing one sort of projection, but if we have multiple cameras for multiple projections, then it's quite useful to have different names. So we can just jump into here and have a look through our projection cam. Okay, next thing we need to do is we need to bring the image in. So if we go view, camera tools, no, it's not, it's image plane. Here we are, and this is the image. So let's whack that in. There we go. Now it's actually bigger than bigger than the screen, so we can make sure it all fits onto the screen. If we go to camera settings, and again drop down to resolution gate, it'll fit it into the height. As you can see, our rendering area is smaller than the actual picture. So if we go up to render settings, scroll down, here we go, 950 by 540. Well, we need to make that the same size as the image. So if we scroll up, here we go, 5616 by 3744. 5616 3744. Bang. Takes care of that. Okay, and if you actually wanted to have more screen sort of a state around the image, you could actually go down to view camera settings and put overscan on. That will actually give you even more view to play around with. I think we'll just put it on fill for the time being. Okay, now another thing we need to do is probably when we start creating our geometry, it's going to actually clip through the image because the camera's actually quite close to this image. We can see this if we go to, actually if we just jump out, go to here, quite close. So what we can do is we can, if we select that, where it says depth, right, put something like 1000 in, and that will move it back from the camera, and that will give us a bit more room. Okay. Now what we can do is we can put the ground plane down where we think the actual ground would be. So if we just move the camera down, set it up, something like this, roughly like that. The reason it's actually moving quite smoothly on my screen is I'm using a 3D mouse. So obviously if you were doing it with the normal mouse, it would be, you'd move it around like that, just in case you're wondering why things are moving without the actual mouse cursor moving. So we get that down to roughly what we think's right. Then if we go up to this little camera symbol here, click that, and then go down to the channel box, and if we drag select over these, right click, and go down to lock selection. Okay, that's going to stop the camera moving about, and it's going to lock everything down so we can't screw things up. Right, now we're ready to start bringing the geometry in. So let's go to polygons, and let's drop a polygon in, and there it appears down there. Okay. Now if we size this up a bit, and what you're going to notice is we can't see through it. It's a bit hard to line things up when it's like that. And also it's floating above the plane now. So if we just jump out of this again and go to our perspective camera, what we can do, so we can snap it to the ground plane, is first of all we need to move the pivot point around. So if we hold down the D button and then the V button, V for Victor, and then just drag it, it should snap to any one of the vertices. So we'll snap it down to the bottom front facing right corner, and then if we hold down X, it will snap down to the grid. So now we know it's down on the ground plane. Okay, and we'll just jump back. It's just easier to do it in the perspective view. So now we just need to line it up. And actually where that drain pipe is roughly where the corner of the image is, because this is actually a jutting out piece just here. Okay, so we need to be able to see what we're doing a bit better. So if we go up to shading, hit X-ray, and then again if we hit wireframe on shaded, it'll mean that when we click off it we get this blue outline. Blue is a little bit hard to see when it's dark. So if we create a new display layer just by clicking here and double click it, select yellow or some other bright color and save. That'll mean that the geometry will highlight yellow. We need to put that in the display layer. So if we just click the geometry once, right click on here, say add selected objects. There we go. Cool. Right, so now the fun part starts. So let's see if we can get this to fit roughly. Okay. So we're not going to change any of the vertices to make it fit, no matter how tempting it is, because it'll screw up the actual projection. Once we do a camera move, you'll suddenly see that everything goes a bit wonky. So it needs to work from this perspective. Okay, so I'm going to try and move this around. And if you find that things are moving a little bit too quickly or jerkily, you don't have that fine movement, what we can do is we can go up here and it might look like this. Now if we click this little set of arrows, double click it, you'll get this, and this looks like a little timer. We want it so there's only one segment showing, and this will probably be a straight arrow. So if we click it, it'll turn into a curve. That means it's a ramp. So it means things start off slowly and then they gradually get more and more. So it means that we can then click on one of these rotational axis, and then with the middle button we can then slide it. That means we can then do tiny movements. Okay, so I want to do that. Okay. Get it up like this. Okay. Now we can move the vertices. We just can't deform it. So we can push them in and out as long as it's uniform. Okay, something like this. Let's take these. Oops. Okay, maybe just push that out there. This is actually on 2 levels, which is why. So we just push it down to there. Right. Object mode. And maybe split the geometry. Bang in the middle. This is actually split selected edge, so these are just shortcuts. If you want to add shortcuts to things, all you have to do, say you had a bridge tool, if you hold down Control and Shift and then left click, it'll pop up in your custom toolbar, and then you don't have to go through the menu to do it anymore. So these are just shortcuts that I've created, and that was a split selected edge. It's quite useful. It means that you can, say you wanted to have, say, split something into 6 equal parts, you could do that and then hit this and it will add 6 equal splits to your tool, or just one like I did before. So it means it's bang in the middle. Okay, and then we'll select these two. Actually, and now I need to see a bit more. I can't see where the top of that roof is. So if we go down to View, Camera Settings, and put overscan on. There we go. Hit down W and push that up. If you want to get really careful, zoom in, and you find the camera's locked, obviously, what you can do again is go to View and Camera Tools and 2D Pan and Zoom. Hit a little square there, and that will mean that you can then zoom in and get it really tight. Like I say, I'm not doing this in a really detailed way. This is just to show you the basics of how to get your image mapped out. Okay, so say we've got our geometry in there now. Okay, and the next thing we want to do is actually project onto that geometry. So we need to open up the Hypershade, and we're going to create a new Lambert shader. Double click it, give it a name, house projection. Okay. Then in our color, we're going to click the little checkered square, and then we're going to right click on File, and we're going to say Create as Projection. Okay, now you're going to see where it says Planar. We're going to drop that down to Perspective, and then this is probably closed up, so we need to click down Camera Projection Attributes, and we're going to choose a camera that we want to project through, and it's the camera projection shape. Okay, then we're going to click where it says Image. We're going to click this, and we're going to choose this image. If we actually click back, there's one other thing we need to do. We need to take the diffuse all the way down, and we're going to bring up the ambient color. This just means it doesn't get any shading, shadows. It's just a flat shader. Okay. The next thing, obviously, is to assign the shader, and you're probably not going to notice any difference, and that is because we haven't applied the shader for some reason. Okay, so let's try that again. We can go down and apply it this way. Apply house projection. Press 6 on your keyboard to show textures, and there we go. You've projected onto your house. Okay, and you can continue building out the scene. Let's just add another cube. Okay. So you can see on this one maybe. And you'll be able to see, for example, where that would start. So it would start something like around here maybe. Okay. Take the vertices out. Just drag that along there. Okay. Just take the vertices. Oops. Mistake. Just drop them down like this. Okay, now I'm not going to bother forming this and making it all the right shape. I'm just showing you how to add additional geometry in. Okay, you guys can then shape these things to fit the actual scene as they should be. Let's go to custom. Oh no, we don't want those. In fact, actually what we can do, let's take multi-cut, chop it here. Okay. Okay, let's extrude that down. Doesn't need to go down quite that far. Okay. See, that's really, really badly done. Okay, but you guys would make this look good. Okay, take extrude off. Now, problem is, once you start extruding bits of geometry out and sort of mucking about with it like this, suddenly you're going to actually need UVs on this. Otherwise, you're just going to get stretching all the way down. It's just going to look really weird. As soon as you apply your shader to it, it'll look fine when you apply your shader, but as soon as you bake it out, you'll get rough shading. So what we can do is we say create UVs and create UVs based on camera, and that will just add UVs based upon what you're looking at. You'll see, just do it without, apply the shader to it and bake it out, and you'll see what the problem is. Okay, so we're going to go into Hypershade, and we're going to try apply this. There we go. So now, when we go here, let's take the vertex up. Vertices. Easy. So now you've got that. Could add a ground plane in. Polygons. Drop that in. Let's flatten that out like this. Okay. Let's make it 3 by 3. Okay. Okay, there we are. And again, let's put the shader on there. Yes, and that looks terrible. Of course it does, because it's stretching from all the way there. But what you'll see is that it's all going to work from where the camera is. So let's take this and put a different background in there, just so you can see what it looks like with a different background, so it's not quite as confusing. Something like this. You can see now, let's get rid of the, you can see now if you were to do just a simple camera move, like this, and we extended that background, it'd be quite effective. Again, you could even fly through the doorway. It doesn't have to be a big move, it can just be 3 seconds, 2 or 3 seconds, and that's enough. So that's essentially how you set up a really basic camera projection. And then all of these skewed textures, what we're going to do next is we're going to bake them out, and then we're going to edit them in Photoshop, and we'll remove all of the artifacts that we don't need. So we'll end up with a really nice, clean clean texture on the geometry. And you can get in there and be fancy. You can start sculpting additional bits of geometry out of here where the windows are. But that's, maybe that's for another lesson, just when we get a bit more advanced with things. So hope this has been helpful, and good luck.